Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing this evening? Hello, hello. It is a beautiful evening in Indianapolis tonight. It is 63 degrees outside, which is 17 degrees cooler than it was a couple days ago when it was like 80 outside. Today, it was in the mid-70s. It was so nice. I went to the grocery store and I was like walking out of the grocery store. And this woman looked at me and she goes, fall. I said, I know, I love it, right? If I knew, it would make me kind of sad if I knew that the weather wasn't going to turn back to like 80 and 90 again, because then it would be like, oh, it really is fall. So I can enjoy it knowing that within a day or two we're going to have really hot weather again. So, well, if you didn't watch my vlog on my BookTube channel, let me give you a little update, because I'm sure you're so excited. Well, I vlogged last night after I left the house to read, and that was about as much reading as I got done last night on the books. But then today, I have like really been focusing my attention on listening to this audiobook. I'm about halfway through almost. What If It's Us by Adam Silvera and Becky Albertalli, and it is adorable. And it's about these two guys that meet in New York City. I just wish books like this would have existed when I was in high school. So I did a vlog for my BookTube channel today. If you guys want to check it out, it's short. It's like a 14-minute vlog. Oh, by the way, this is not going to be a long vlog tonight. It's not, though. It really isn't, because I want to really focus on listening to this book. I'm really wanting a Diet Coke right now. I'm wondering if there's a McDonald's around here open somewhere. But, yeah, like, you know, it makes me kind of sad in retrospect, I guess, looking back on my life, that, you know, when I was in high school, I think one of the hardest things for me was, you know, seeing my friends get crushes. And I remember my one friend, that was a twin. This is so funny. I don't actually think I've shared this story on here before. She had this crush on this guy that he was like super smart and kind of a little nerdy, but real popular too. And he listened to like really different music, and like it today in high school, like he would be like, you know, part of that group that you read books about, I guess, you know, that like always listens to, like in this book that I'm listening to, they're listening to like Elliott Smith and stuff. Like he listened to like real kind of like artsy music back in the day, you know, like what we would have considered like college music and stuff. So anyway, she just was real into him, and they were in a class together, and so she made a mixtape for him. Is this McDonald's open? God, I wish, but I know it's not. Drive-through open. Oh, it can't be. There's not one car in this. The Lion King, there's a one. Is it open? Oh, I think they're closed. They have to be closed. When did like the menu become HD? And like every burger looks so delicious on there. Now I'm hungry for an Impossible Burger. Yeah, they're closed. But anyway, she made a mixed cassette tape of music for him. And I remember it was like a Friday night, like all of our other friends were like, and she's the twin, and her sister and everybody else was like out at some party, and like I never went to parties. Well, I wouldn't say never, but I rarely went to parties. So whoever was just like hanging out on the weekends, that's like who I was with. So our other friends were like out at parties, because my one friend, her boyfriend was in a band, and then the other, my friend's sister, her twin sister, she kind of like dated this guy that he was in a band too. And so they were always like at band rehearsal and band practice. Did you guys have any friends that were like that in high school? Okay, so that was kind of the deal. Or like we would go watch skaters skate. That was kind of the thing. And I like look back on that, you know, and it's like I was just kind of like I wasn't out in high school. And my senior year, my second semester of my senior year, I had a girlfriend that I dated. But before that, I think like I was just kind of their very sexually ambiguous friend that probably everybody knew I was gay, but except for me, and I didn't come out and say anything about it. But obviously inside I had a lot of those feelings, you know, and I would say that like when I was in high school, I was probably more, like I didn't really know how I felt, honestly. I was very innocent when it came to like emotions and feelings towards attractions. Like I was almost kind of scared of them, if that makes sense. So I was kind of real innocent about it. And, but I think like if I had been really truly like honest with myself, at the least, I would have identified as bisexual, and I think probably if I was super honest with myself, gay, because my feelings towards like girls and guys was different, and like I appreciated girls, I liked being with girls. Like my girlfriend I thought was gorgeous, I thought she was beautiful, but I wasn't like physically attracted to her the way that I was like physically attracted to guys. So anyway, but that's beside the point. Well, and talking about this book, I'll say that in a second, but so my friend, everybody was gone, and it was she and I and another friend of mine, my friend that lives in Portland, and she was like a year behind us, and she and I actually have the same birthday. So it was the three of us, and we were like at her house, and we're like, oh my God, we should take this tape over to his house. And my friend was like, no, I'd be like so embarrassed and whatever. And she's like, how would he know it was from me? And I said, okay, we're gonna write a letter. We'll write like this note that he like can't deny, right? Like that he'll want. And I think it was a Saturday because we knew that she wouldn't hear from him on Sunday. And so we were waiting to go to school like on Monday to see what would happen. Because I don't think she put her phone number. I mean, this is before cell phones, you know? So, like, if you were going to have somebody call you, it would have to be to their house and, you know, ask for that person and stuff. So weird. As soon as I said that, their phone number went through my head. I don't know how I remember their phone number. But, and her mom doesn't live there anymore, and their dad has passed away. So I'm sure they have a new phone number now. It doesn't exist. I'm sure mine doesn't either. And I remember my phone number that I had when I was growing up. As a little kid. Isn't that so funny? I remember my like phone number from my house. Oh, I had a private number too at my dad's house, and I remember that too. But so we sat down and we wrote this letter, and we took it over to his house. It must have been Saturday night. I was gonna say maybe it was that Sunday, but I think it was I'm almost positive it was a Saturday night. So anyway, but she wanted to make like all these musical references in it, and he liked Simon and Garfunkel, and so she knew that he liked Simon and Garfunkel, and she and I loved the song Dangling Conversation, and so I said, you have to use the phrase Dangling Conversation in your letter to him. And she was like, no, that's so stupid, that's so corny and cheesy. I was like, no, you have to use it in there. So we wrote this letter, and it was like, hey, I see you at school, and we're in the same class, and I know you don't really know me, but I would like to hang out and have a dangling conversation sometime and drink like strong coffee. It was like very that, you know, very like artsy, anonymous love letter. And what was weird was that like my mom and his mom knew each other really well because they played tennis together. And so I had known him for a long time, but like he had switched schools because he had lived with his dad for a while, and then he like moved and lived with his mom. But anyway, he was a really nice guy. I've seen him actually since like in the last couple years. I've seen him. He must like live close to me somewhere because I run into him at the most random places. He doesn't recognize me at all. But it's funny that nobody recognizes me today from like when I was in high school. I don't think I look a whole lot different except for that I have white hair and a beard. So I guess I look completely different. I don't know. But So anyway, he's really a nice guy, and so we were like in the car, and my friend and I, the other girl, she like wanted us to run it up to the door, and I'm like, no way, you run it up to the door. This is your love letter. And I remember we were gonna like let her out, like, so like if the house is up there, we were gonna let her out here and then turn around and we were gonna run back, and she was gonna like go up to the door and like ring the doorbell, and then like, anyway, so she went and put the tape with a note on the door, and then she like rang the doorbell, and we like picked her up. This is so funny, I totally forgot about this. And we like picked her up, and we just sat there for a second to see like if the light came on, and she was like, I don't think I pushed the doorbell out loud enough. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, I don't think that, like, and I knew, like, I think I had been there, and so like I knew, like with my mom, and I knew the doorbell was like really loud. Do you remember like doorbells back in the day? Like ours was that like da na 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 na, like the Close Encounters number. That's what it sounded like. So anyway, I was like, here's a really loud doorbell. You have to go back up there and ring it again. They didn't hear you. And she was like, no, I'm too embarrassed and whatever. And so anyway, she goes back, and she's like kind of like in his front yard, and she's kind of like waiting, and there's like a light on like in the back of the house, like a kitchen light or something, and she's like waiting to see. And so we're like watching, and we're like shouting out the window, and we're like, it was like perfect fall evening like tonight. We were like, go ring that doorbell, because we wanted like somebody to come, because like then they would forget that they would never see the tape, right, unless they walked out their front door. But anyway, so finally, and she's just like standing there, and they had all these huge trees in their yard, and she's just like standing there and like looking back at us and looking at the front door, and she's like, I don't know what to do. So finally she starts running towards the front door, and she like gets to the front door, and like right as she's like about to hit the doorknob or the doorbell or something like that, you see the lights in the house go on, and she starts running towards the car, and we can hear her, and she's like, go. And so she gets to the car, and she's like, oh my God, I could hear them right outside the door. She goes, right before I hit the doorbell. And she's like, I couldn't stop myself. And they like opened the door while we were sitting there watching. We're all like, oh, yeah, it wasn't love, and after all, it just wasn't. He thanked her. He was real nice about the whole thing. He like, he used to take tape or CDs. Like he would have like a CD that he was listening to at the moment, and he would take like, do you remember the cardboard box that the CD would come in? And he would like tape it to the front of his locker. And it was always some kind of like real artsy music. I had pictures of Madonna and Sandra Bernhardt in my locker. Nobody knew I was gay. I was obsessed with the friendship of Sandra Bernhardt and Madonna, and I was obsessed with Sandra Bernhardt in high school. Sandra Bernhardt, honest to God, got me through high school. Like, she really did. I think it was just her being so weird and different and you know, she wasn't out then either. Being so weird and different and not fitting in and not really caring. And that not fitting in is what kind of made her popular, I think, to some degree, is to me what like was so attractive about her. So anyway, he was real nice about the whole thing, and we went to school, and he like handled it like a gentleman and was like, hey, I really appreciate it. I'm not really interested in dating anybody right now. Like, probably especially you, is what he was thinking, but he didn't say it. She knew it though. She was devastated. She was like, I didn't mean it like that. He wasn't interested in her. He just wasn't, you know? And she was real upset about it. We used to tease her about it. We'd be like, girl, do you want to go leave some more tapes on his door? See, that's called shade. That's called throwing shade. And when you're friends, because I know people misunderstand bullying and shade, that's shade, okay? To say to your girlfriend, hey, you want to go leave another tape on that dude's door? That's called shade. Like, maybe it wasn't the brightest idea, but it wasn't my idea. And we would sit there, and she'd be like, you guys were the ones that told us to do it. And my friend and I, we'd be like, what are you talking about? It was never our idea. We never told you to do that. It was totally our idea. But anyway, yeah. Now she's married. Her husband's real cool. They're like perfect for each other. They're like hippies and live in Washington State. And they don't live on like a commune, but they live kind of like in communal living. And she's a naturopathic physician. I think her husband is too, and they have a practice. And they live outside of Bellingham, Washington. She and her sister both went to IU and became complete hippies. Her sister is, well, her sister was for a long time what's it called? A Waldorf educator. It's a special kind of teaching, like a Montessori kind of school, I think. I don't know that I really understand it. But she did that for a long time, and she lives close to her. All of my friends moved out west. All my friends from high school. Well, not all of them, but the majority of my friends from high school live in Oregon and Washington. And they're all kind of, like, if you saw them, you'd be like, okay, this is Peter's youth. Like, to this day. Like, they're real, seriously, very earthy people. Her sister, that I was really close with my junior year, her twin sister, and then the other twin I was really close with her, my senior year. The one I was just telling you about my senior year, she and I were really close. But her sister went to IU, followed the Grateful Dead, met this guy on tour. So she was 21. Oh, her son can't be that old. Yeah, she would have been 21 because because we were all young when we started college. So she was 18 to 19, 19 to 20, 20 to 21, 21. She would have been 22. She had a baby like right after like the year after we graduated. So at 22. God, is he that old? He cannot be that old. I guess he's like 25. That's weird. Yeah. But anyway, so she met this guy on tour, and they followed the Grateful Dead for a long time. Like almost all of my really good friends followed the Grateful Dead. I followed it for a little bit locally around here, like the shows around the Midwest. But like my friends literally like went cross country and like lived in vans, and and I did a little bit of that, but nothing like for a summer. Like I didn't do it. Like they did it for years, like my friends. And well, wait, because that would have coincided. So Jerry died in 95, Jerry Garcia from the Grateful Dead, and I would have been 22 going on 23. Was she a year ahead of me? I think she was a year ahead of me. Not like in grade, but like in age. So I don't know, but she graduated from college and had her baby. I almost want to say that she was pregnant her last year of college. I almost kind of feel like she was pregnant her last year of college, and she had toured the summer before, and that's what happened. If anybody out there went to Indiana University, my friends all lived in Collins, so if that would make sense to you, you'll understand what I'm talking about. They all lived in Collins, and then they all moved into like these ramshackle houses that had signs in the toilet that said things like, if it's yellow, let it mellow, if it's brown, flush it down, things like that. They were complete hippies, and they would live like 15 of them to a house and stuff like that. I loved the Grateful Dead, and I loved that life. But I couldn't live it like 24/7, 365 like they did. I mean, some of my friends legit did it like all the time. And so I have friends of mine today, no lie, that I can tell you went to every show this summer of the Grateful Dead that it's like hardly exists anymore. I don't think what are they called now? Further or something like that. I don't really keep up with it anymore because I was such a diehard Jerry Garcia fan. Is this McDonald's is open? Please be. But anyway, she had a baby, and yeah, and then she moved out to Washington to be with a friend, and it is open. Oh my God, is the drive-in line so long? She moved out there and had her baby out there, the friend, and then she ended up staying out there. And then he graduated from high school a couple years ago, and traveled the world, and like his Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff is legit. Like him, I mean, he's been everywhere. I'm like, well, the apple didn't fall far from the tree. I mean, like, his mom and him are both like that, like totally free spirits. He never knew his dad. His dad didn't want any involvement in his life. I remember she really wanted his dad to get involved. His dad was like younger than her. I remember he was like 18 and 19, and she was like 21 when she got pregnant.
Hey, can that help you?
Can I get a large Diet Coke, please?
Let me out for you?
Yep. He was like a couple years younger than her. And he was like, I don't want anything to do with the baby, which I think is sad. But I don't know. She and I haven't talked about that forever, so I don't know if. But I don't think he ever did have any contact with his dad. But anyway, he spent like time in Australia, living all these really cool places. Oh, I'm sorry, I was digging pennies out. I was digging pennies. I'm sorry, sweetie. Here you go. Thank you so much. It's weird to me sometimes, like my friends that have kids, like not my friends that have kids like Tanya or like Aaron. It's not like, that's not weird to me because like ever since I've known them, they've had kids, you know what I mean? Who else has been on here that has kids? You know, or like Caroline, my cousin. Like that's not weird to me. Even though Caroline and I had a $1,000 bet when we were like 14 and 17 that she was never gonna get married and never gonna have kids, she said. She got married and had kids, so she's a liar straight from the pit of hell. I reminded her of that not too long. I was like, do you remember that you owe me $1,000? Her son thought it was so hilarious. He got such a kick out of it. She was like, I never said that. I was like, Caroline, you totally did say it. Hey, how are you? Good, thank you. And so anyway, I'm so excited for this Diet Coke. You have no idea. But like my friends from high school that had kids, well, actually a lot of my friends from high school chose not to have kids. Do that little jazz music? That's kind of nice, wasn't it? But like a lot of my friends chose not to have kids. Chose not to have kids. Like, not that they like, you know, didn't get married or, you know, whatever, but like got married and then chose not to have kids. I have a couple friends of mine that are still single, chose not to get married. I mean, and these were like choices. Like they chose, like, I don't want to ever get married. I want to be single. I want to be my own person. It's kind of weird when I look back on my group. My group from high school, none of us turned out the way that that if you had asked me then, none of us turned out the way that I thought we would have. Not one of us. I mean, there isn't the one that I look back on and think, well, she would have been a housewife and she ended up a housewife. Like, that hasn't happened. You know, like my closest friend growing up, the one that I had from like, you know, kindergarten, elementary, all the way up. It stopped. My friend that I had from kindergarten all the way up, that we went to, you know, college and graduate school together. You know, she's married today and she has a daughter and she lives in a nice housing area. She has a very serious job. If you had asked me, you know, like, still hilarious, like when I see her, just rarely, but if you had asked me, like, if I would have expected that from her, I would have expected that from her. You know, like, that doesn't surprise me. She had older sisters, like older sisters when we were in high school. They all had kids, and her life was centered around her family. Like on, you know, Sundays and holidays, like she was always with her family and her nieces. She had nieces that were like almost her age. So it doesn't surprise me at all that that's what ended up happening with her. My friends that went out and are still hippies kind of to this day, I mean, they're kind of like, I wouldn't say sold out hippies, but they have like, you know, they wear Patagonia coats and they have dreadlocks and that kind of stuff, and they're in their 40s, and they're naturopathic physicians, you know what I mean? Like those kind of hippies. But anyway, like that doesn't surprise me. You know, I would have, my one friend, my one twin, I really honestly would have thought she would have ended up in like Seattle grunge scene or like New York City. I really would have. She was very artsy, very different, totally fearless. I thought she would have ended up doing something artistic. You know, I have a friend of mine that lives in Portland, and she went to IU she got her, I think she ended up getting her master's in fine arts from IU too. And she paints murals, and she's a fantastic artist. And I always knew that would be her. And, you know, she's always like lived in some loft apartment and had huge dogs, and, you know, wears her hair like, she has real long hair. She always has, and she had it in high school, and, you know, she twirls it with like a paint stick and sticks it through it or whatever, you know. She's always been that. And, you know, long white shirt with paint splotches on it. She'll always be that till the day that she dies. And my friends haven't really, like, internally, like, if you saw them or you met them, you would be like, their souls are still 17. And I think that that's one thing that, like, kind of united us back then and is similar now in a weird way. I don't know. But none of my friends did anything that, like, really surprised me. I'm, like, thinking. I have one friend that lives here that has kids. She stayed here. I think she's on her third husband, and she has kids. That doesn't surprise me one bit. She has boyfriend after boyfriend after boyfriend in high school. She wanted to be a mom. She wanted to live here and be a mom. That's what she wanted to do, and she did it, you know? And I don't think there's anything, people want to discredit that. I mean, let's just be for real. Like, being a parent, being a stay-at-home parent, or a parent that works jobs, and you know, that is a full-time job. It's a full-time responsibility. It's a career. I have like one friend of mine that ended up becoming a professor of like archaeology or anthropology or something. That surprises me. Not that she did that, because she was real different and artsy anyway. But she's like real academia. That kind of surprises me. But she was always super bright. I just didn't know that was the area that she would go into, you know? Like, I didn't see that in high school. I have a friend of mine that's like a very, very reputable architect in a huge city. That doesn't surprise me at all, but I thought she would end up doing something more artsy. She and her husband are both like serious architects in a major city, and they like, they live the life, let me just tell you. And they're like a couple that I'm friends with that chose not to have kids. And, they travel like all the time. I mean, you should see their life. It's just incredible. My friend Valerie is texting me. Let's see what she's saying. It's late. I'm hoping this is not something bad. She sent me this. Okay, it's this woman. I don't know who she is. I haven't watched the whole thing. But she did this vlog. I still have to watch it. I watched the beginning of it and I commented on it and thanked her. She's like Australian vlogger. And at the beginning of her video, she did a vlog called Things I Bought Because of Instagram. I haven't watched the vlog. Her vlogs were like, excuse me, as long as me. She must not know I have this channel, because she copies the beginning of my Peter Monn channel. Hey you guys, it's Peter and I'm back. Of course I'm back, I'm not going anywhere. She says that at the beginning of it, and then she talks about me and that she watches me, even though I get so many people that say this. I don't watch drama channels, but I watch Peter Monn. Like, I have so many people that say that. It's crazy. So, and if I say, well, I don't really consider myself a drama channel, then, you know, it is what it is. But I do consider myself a drama channel, so. But anyway, she was so nice at the beginning of this video, but I didn't watch the rest of the video and I wanted to watch it. But she's literally in her car vlogging, and I thought, how funny is this that I do the same thing that she does? And she must not know about this vlog channel, so. But what was I gonna say? You know, like I was talking about this book. Like, if these books existed when I was in high school, I just remember, like, I so bad, you know, I would always, you know, like how you have parents that, like, watched everything that you brought through the door and you couldn't hide anything in your room, and, you know, your parents searched your stuff left and right. Okay, those were not my parents. So I could have brought something right in the front door and waved it around like this and nobody would have noticed, okay? Like, in all seriousness. So I was at the bookstore a lot looking at books, you know, like gay books. And I mean, this story that I'm reading is basically like a gay love story, but it's all like, okay, so the way that I was explaining it to Alex today, I'm like, it's adorable, this book. And I said, but it's kind of like they meet and then they don't get each other's phone numbers and they don't know how to find each other again. So their friends are helping them find each other through social media. And he goes, kind of like a modern day Greece. And I go, exactly like a modern day Greece. It's exactly what it is. And you know, it kind of makes me sad. It's like, I never got to experience that because I kept all of my feelings and all my emotions inside. I had lots of crushes on guys in high school, lots. And I never said anything about it, you know? And thankfully, like, I look back on it and these guys are all like straight and married now. I mean, God, I would have got my ass kicked. Period. End of story. There would have been nothing to it, you know? And I think that's not just a gay thing. I think a lot of straight people keep, you know, their crushes to themselves and things, but I couldn't even talk to my friends about it, you know? And my one friend I talked to about this guy, Rusty, who I dedicated my book to. And my book is actually based on a true event that happened with this guy, Rusty, that I did know. And that I talked to one time in high school and developed an undying crush on like nobody's business. And I only talked to him one time and then found out through my best friend that he moved out, through my friend, the one twin, that he actually moved away. He was only there for like a semester. And this skater guy, I always kind of wonder what happened to him. You think he ever wakes up and he's like, I wonder if there's a book dedicated to me out there. Well, there is, so. But, I've looked up so many Rusties through the years just because I wanted to know what happened to him. There's no Rusties out there. But anyway, and then I was like, I wonder if that's really what his real name was or they just called him that and stuff. So anyway, you know, I just didn't have people to talk to about that. And I can remember going to, like, Walden Books back in the day. And, you know, even, like, when we had a Borders here, I remember the first Borders that we had was so much different than, like, the newer Borders that we had before they closed. I loved Borders Bookstore, by the way. And, I remember going to, like, the gay and lesbian section. And then if you went to the gay and lesbian section, it would have, like, first of all, the gay and lesbian section was maybe two like little, not, what do you call it? Bookshelves, okay? And I'm not talking bookshelves, I'm talking a shelf, 2 shelves maybe, right? When I was growing up. And then half the books would be like photography books, and then the other books would be like art books, and then there would be like nonfiction textbooks in there, and then, you know, that people like studies that people had done and all that kind of stuff. And then at the very, very end there would be, oh, and erotica was mixed in there. And then if you were looking for a book, it was like, you would find something by like they made it into a movie, that Maurice. Do you remember that Maurice movie? It was horrible. It was so bad. The book and the movie were both so horrible. I don't even think I finished either one of them. But it was like that. Like, there was nothing. I remember there was this book that came out when, I mean, I remember going to bookstores. Like, there was a gay bookstore that opened in kind of like downtown Indianapolis for a while, Mass Avenue, which is now where there's like all these artsy restaurants that Alex goes to and stuff. But that was kind of like a gay area for a while. And they had a gay bookstore down there, and we would go, and I remember there was like 5 bestsellers that had come out. And this is like, you know, of course people talked about Armistead Moped and Tales of the City, but that was like it back in the day, like when I was growing up. And I can remember feeling so just like dirty, like that like there was no books for me to read about myself. You know what I mean? There was no books that were telling my experience of my emotions and my feelings, you know. And today, they have, you know, kids have tons and tons and tons, you know, to the point where if you don't have diverse characters in your books, people are picking you apart. And they're like, well, this book doesn't have any diverse characters in it. It's like, let's slow down a little bit. You know, we've come a long way. Like, I feel like I can't read a book anymore that doesn't have a gay character in it, and I can't watch a TV show that doesn't have a gay character in it, you know? And, which is great. It's fantastic. The visibility is unbelievable, you know? And now we're talking about, you know, bisexuality and trans men and women, and we're talking about, you know, like pansexuality, and we're talking about all this, and, you know, gender binary issues, and we're talking about all these kinds of things, you know, in pop culture, and it's fantastic. And it's like, look at how far we've come. But there's a part of me that is sad that I didn't have that growing up. I feel like I missed out on a huge part of my growing up experience with identification. I didn't have that, you know, and I was scared because I didn't, if what I identified with didn't exist, then who was I? And, but I remember, like, when this bookstore opened on Mass Ave, and my friends and I, the ones that I, like, hung out with when I first came out, and we all would go out together and stuff. I had, like, 2 guy friends and 2 girlfriends that lived in this huge apartment at 23rd and Meridian in downtown Indianapolis. It was so fun. We used to go there all the time. I lived there for like almost 6 months. I mean, I didn't literally live there, but I was there all the time. And we would go to this bookstore and we would just sit there, and we thought we were so intellectual. We would like drink coffee and stuff. And I remember this book came out, and I found it in my basement not too long ago, and it's called Tim and Pete, or Pete and Tim or something. And there was like all these books like that, like all these fictional books started coming out about people's gay experiences, or they were gay themed fiction books and lesbian themed fiction books, you know? It was fantastic. And all of a sudden we had characters to identify with, but I don't know. I wonder how my life would be different if I could, I mean, you know, kids are still bullied today, so that probably would still be the case, but I definitely think knowing my family and knowing who my friends were in high school, if I had similar friends in high school and I was in high school today, and my parents were the same as they were when I was in high school, I definitely would have come out. And I probably would have come out young too, like 9th grade. And you know, I wonder what that would have opened me up to as far as experiences in my life, you know? Would I have been more involved? Would I have been less socially awkward? Would I have been more comfortable in my own skin? Would I have done things like show choir? I've always loved music, you know? Not necessarily show tunes, but, you know, would I have done show choir? Would I have done theater? Would I have done drama? Would that have led my, you know, I've always had that entertaining, you know, aspect to myself that I've always wanted to be an entertainer. Would that have opened me up to a whole new area of my life, you know? But I can't look back on that and be bitter about the fact that I didn't have those experiences. But, you know, it is hard for me when, like, I was watching this video not too long ago, and it was all these young kids that identified on the LG, you know, BTQIA plus spectrum, and they're like not even respecting the people that came before them that paved the road, you know. And part of that isn't, we're not just talking Stonewall, we're not just talking about those riots, we're talking about those of us that lived in closets for years because we really didn't have any other option, you know. It was live in a closet or get your ass beat. Well, that's not a huge question when you're 16 years old and you're afraid of everybody, you know. And then they sit on a panel and want to talk about that they don't get respected. And I'm like, you have no idea. Like, you're able to love somebody out loud in public. Like, we were not able to do that. And it wasn't just, you know, feeling like I couldn't do it in public. It was, even if I wanted to have a crush on somebody and talk to them about it, I didn't know how to find somebody else that was gay. I didn't know how to talk to somebody else that was gay. I didn't know how to meet other people and talk about it. I didn't know how to talk about it to my friends. There was no language that was represented to me. There was no books. There were no movies. There were no pop stars talking about it. You know, there was no roadmap for what that looked like, of how I should have those conversations with people. Nobody was saying, this is how you come out to your friends. This is how you come out to your parents. We figured it out on our own. You know? There were no coming out stories on YouTube. There was none of that. We didn't see happy gay couples on YouTube and on reality shows and, you know, TV. We didn't see any of that. So we had to just fight for it and believe that that could be possible. And that's the reality. Like, that is truly the reality, you know? But I also think sometimes it's hard, you know, this is where it kind of pisses me off a little bit, but at the same time, like, I don't get too beat up about it, because I think it's hard to be grateful for something that you didn't know was given so freely to you. You know, like kids coming out today that are in their late teens and early 20s or whatever, you know, it's like they didn't know what it was like 30 years ago. Why should they? They weren't even alive, you know? Why should I expect them to know that? Or should we know our history, you know? Or should we know our history of whatever community we come from and be respectful to that? I mean, maybe there's something to be said for that. But I also think if you had asked me at 30 if I felt that way versus 47, my opinion's changed. I didn't feel so strongly about that at 30. I'd have been like, I don't really care if people respect their history or not when it comes to being gay, you know, and I made it this far and this is who I am today. So I think it changes over time too, you know, like, I think when you reminisce about your past a little bit, it makes you a little bit more passionate about what you've gone through. And I even had it. I mean, even being bullied ruthlessly, violently, you know, being scared to ever talk about any kind of crush that I had, you know, and then even coming out was terrifying to me. It was so terrifying to me. I don't think that experience is different for people today. I think it's still scary for them. It's walking through a door, you don't know what's on the other side. But even going through all that, my experience was nothing compared to what some people have had, you know? Nothing. I mean, I'm sitting here complaining about the fact that I wasn't able to go to a school dance or had a crush on a guy in high school, and I didn't have books to help me identify with that. But like, I literally have friends of mine that the second they came out to their parents told them to get out of the house and never come back, and they've never gone back. 30 years later, they've never gone back, and they've no relationship with their parents to this day. And some of them their parents have died, sisters and brothers have died, and they've never had conversations with them. They were homeless at 15 and 16 years old. This happens. Like, this happened. I know a lot of people that live this experience. I've had close friends of mine that have lived this experience, you know? So that wasn't mine, and I feel grateful for that. And, I don't know. I think the world is just a better place now that we have, you know, opportunities to share our experiences, whether they be in books or YouTube videos or movies or TV shows or songs or whatever, you know, poetry. Don't you think? Don't you think? Don't you, baby? I always say that at home. So anyway, that's my rambling for tonight. I'm getting ready to go listen to my audiobook here in a second. I'm not going to vlog for a whole lot longer. This little store over here called the Accent Shop, my mom used to go to all the time. She loved it. I'd always be like, where could you get that neat little gift? And she'd be like, the Accent Shop. I can't believe it's still open. It's just like this little gift store here in Indianapolis. But everything's like overpriced. But they have like a clearance area. And so she'd go in there and she would buy things that you didn't even know that you needed. Like a copper pine cone or something to sit on your table. That is so the kind of gift that my mother would have given me. And then she would have written some kind of like really sweet little poem or letter about pine cones. And anyway, you know, the pine cone would have been $175, and then over 6 months marked down to $3.95, and she'd end up getting it for $3.95. My mother was so proud of getting like things on clearance that got marked down. She would go to the same store literally like 5 times a week and just wait for stuff to get marked down until she would get it where it was nowhere near the price that it had started at. I think that's so funny. Although I'm kind of like that today. I have a hard time paying full price for stuff unless it's like cologne. call me and be so proud about what she had found, that she got so marked down. Well, all right, you guys, listen, I'm going to get off here now. So like I said, this is a little bit shorter than usual, but I hope you're having a I hope you're having an amazing Tuesday. That's what I say. Unless you have other plans, but don't. Enjoy your day, but don't have other plans. Make the most of your day. Life is not a dress rehearsal. Somebody actually tagged me, and the original person that said that today, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't know who said this originally, so that was really cool. They tagged me on that, I think, on Instagram. So, life is not a dress rehearsal. Do things that make you happy. And, yeah, and if nobody else has told you this today, I love you. And look in the mirror. Tell yourself that every day. Write Post-it notes to put on your mirror that say, I love you, and you are loved, and you are wonderful. And read them to yourself every day. And pass it on to somebody else. Let somebody else know. Because it's important to let other people know how much they mean to us. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye. Love ya.